Chosen one, listen carefully, because this is not just another message scrolling past your screen. You didn't land here by accident. There is a reason your eyes stopped on this exact moment. A reason your spirit feels slightly unsettled right now. Time is not moving normally for you anymore. Something has shifted, something urgent. And according to what has been revealed, you have very little time left to recognize it. Archangel Michael is not a symbol. He is a protector, a warrior, a messenger of divine truth. And when a warning like this comes through him, it does not come casually. It comes when something hidden is about to surface. You are what many would call chosen, but being chosen has never meant comfort. It has always meant awareness. It means you are shown things others cannot see, even when it's painful. And right now, there is something you are being called to see, a presence close to you, not a stranger, not someone distant, someone from your own family. Let that settle for a moment, because your spirit already knows who this might be. You felt it in subtle ways, the strange tension, the unexplained energy shifts, the moments where something felt off, but you pushed it aside because it's family. But what if ignoring it is exactly what puts you at risk? This is why the message is urgent. This is why you only have a small window to understand it. Because what's hidden doesn't stay hidden forever. And when it reveals itself, it won't come gently. Now pause for a second. If this message is already resonating with you, if something inside you is saying, "This is for me," then don't ignore that feeling. Take one moment right now to support this message so it can reach others who are also being warned. Tap like, subscribe, and if you truly feel guided, send a super thanks to seal your alignment with this message. What you give in moments like this creates spiritual confirmation that you are ready to receive deeper truth. Now, back to what you need to understand. Archangel Michael does not bring fear. He brings clarity. This is not about turning against your family. This is about opening your eyes. Because not everyone connected to you is aligned with your purpose. And when you begin to rise, when your energy starts to elevate, when your path becomes clearer, opposition often comes from the closest places, not because they are always consciously aware, but because your light exposes what others are still hiding within themselves. And that can create resistance. So right now, you are standing at a spiritual crossroads. Ignore the signs and remain vulnerable, or recognize them and step into protection, because what comes next will test your discernment in ways you didn't expect. There is a reason you've been feeling the way you do lately, and it's not random. Think back for a moment. When was the first time you felt that strange shift around someone close to you? That unexplainable heaviness, that subtle discomfort that didn't match the situation. Everything looked normal on the outside, but inside, something didn't sit right. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself you were overthinking. You convinced yourself, this is family. They wouldn't have negative intentions toward me. But being chosen means your spirit detects what your mind tries to rationalize away. And that feeling you've been brushing aside, that was not imagination, that was discernment. You see, when your energy begins to elevate, when your purpose starts to activate, your spiritual sensitivity sharpens. You begin to pick up on frequencies, intentions, and emotional undercurrents that most people overlook completely. And sometimes, the most confusing signals come from the people you trust the most. This is where it gets difficult, because it's easier to guard yourself from strangers. But when it's someone familiar, someone you've shared memories with, someone who knows your past, your struggles, your growth, you hesitate. You question yourself instead of questioning the energy. But this is exactly where many chosen ones make a mistake. They override their intuition to preserve relationships, and in doing so, they delay their protection. Now listen closely. Not every negative energy is loud. Some of it is quiet, subtle, almost invisible. It can show up as backhanded comments that seem harmless on the surface. It can appear as lack of genuine support when you're moving forward. It can even feel like silent resentment, hidden behind smiles and polite words. And because it's not obvious, you dismiss it. But your spirit never lies. If you've been feeling drained after interacting with a specific person, if your mood shifts without explanation, if your clarity becomes clouded when they are around, that is not coincidence. That is spiritual interference. And yes, sometimes it comes from within your own family, not always from conscious harm, but from unresolved emotions, jealousy, comparison, or even fear of your transformation. When you begin to change, you unintentionally challenge others who are not ready to grow. Your progress becomes a mirror, and not everyone is comfortable with what they see reflected back at them. So instead of rising with you, they may unconsciously try to pull you back. This doesn't mean you need to hate them. It doesn't mean you need to confront them aggressively, but it does mean you need to become aware. Because awareness is protection. You are being shown this now, not to create division, but to sharpen your discernment. Because what's coming next will require you to trust your inner voice more than ever before. And the moment you stop doubting what you feel is the moment your power fully returns. There's a question rising in your mind right now, and it's an important one. Why would this be revealed like this? Why now? And why through something that feels so intense? The answer is simple, but not easy to accept. Because subtle signs were not enough. You were being shown hints for a long time. Small moments, quiet nudges, that inner voice that whispered, "Pay attention," but each time, logic stepped in, emotion stepped in, loyalty stepped in, and you chose to wait. You chose to give the benefit of the doubt. You chose to protect the relationship, even when your spirit was asking you to protect yourself. So now, the message has become louder, not to scare you, but to finally reach you. Because when you are chosen, delays can become dangerous. Not in a physical sense, but in a spiritual one. The longer you ignore what your spirit is trying to reveal, the more disconnected you become from your own guidance. And once that disconnection grows, confusion takes over. That's why this moment feels urgent. Because this is not the beginning of the situation. This is the point where it can no longer be ignored. Archangel Michael's role has always been clear: to cut through illusion, to remove what is hidden in darkness and bring it into light. And sometimes that light exposes things you didn't expect to see, especially within your own circle. But understand this deeply. Revelation is not punishment, it is protection. You are not being shown this to break your heart. You are being shown this to strengthen your awareness. Because there is a difference between love and blind attachment. Love sees clearly. Attachment ignores truth to maintain comfort. And right now, you are being called to shift from attachment into clarity. That may feel uncomfortable. It may even feel painful at first, because part of you wants to go back to not knowing. Part of you wants things to feel normal again. But once your eyes begin to open, they cannot close the same way again. And that is a sign of growth. Now here's something even deeper. The timing of this message is not random either. There is something ahead of you, something significant, a shift, an opportunity, a breakthrough that is closer than you think. And in order for you to step fully into it, your energy must be clean. Your focus must be sharp. Your circle must be understood, not blindly trusted, because the next level of your life cannot be entered with the same level of awareness you had before. It requires elevation. And elevation always comes with separation, not always physically, but energetically. You begin to see people differently. Not with judgment, but with clarity, not with anger, but with understanding. And that understanding allows you to move wisely. So this revelation, as intense as it feels, is actually preparation. Preparation for the version of you that is about to emerge. A version that no longer ignores red flags. A version that no longer questions their intuition. A version that stands in truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Because what is coming next will require that level of strength. What you are experiencing right now goes deeper than emotions, misunderstandings, or personality differences. This is spiritual, and until you see it that way, you will keep trying to solve it on the surface, while the real issue continues underneath. As a chosen one, your life has never been ordinary. There has always been a pattern. Moments where things seem to rise, only to suddenly face resistance. Times when you felt ready to move forward, but something or someone created an unexpected delay. You may have thought it was bad luck, or timing, or just life being difficult. But now, you are beginning to see a different layer. There is a spiritual battle that surrounds purpose. And when someone is marked for growth, elevation, and impact, that journey is not left unchallenged. Not everything that opposes you comes from outside enemies. Sometimes, it moves through familiar faces. This is not about labeling someone as evil. It's about understanding influence. Because people can carry energy they are not even aware of. Energy shaped by their own wounds, their insecurities, their fears. And when your light begins to shine brighter, it can unintentionally trigger those unresolved parts within them. That's when things shift. Support turns into subtle resistance. Encouragement becomes silence, closeness becomes distance, or tension you can't quite explain. And because there is history, because there is emotional connection, you hesitate to acknowledge what is happening. But this is where your spiritual awareness must rise above emotional attachment, because the battle is not always direct. It's not always someone openly working against you. Sometimes it's distraction. Sometimes it's discouragement. Sometimes it's a quiet draining of your energy, just enough to slow you down. And when that energy is coming from someone close, it becomes even more powerful, because your guard is naturally lower. Now understand this clearly. You are not being called to fight people. You are being called to protect your energy. There is a difference. Fighting creates chaos. Protection creates clarity. And Archangel Michael's presence in this message is not about conflict. It's about spiritual defense. It's about standing firm in your purpose, without allowing outside energy to weaken your direction. This means you must become more intentional, more aware of how you feel after certain conversations, more conscious of what you share and who you share it with, more disciplined in guarding your peace, even if it means creating distance where there once was none, because not every connection is meant to have full access to you, especially in seasons of growth. And here's something many chosen ones struggle to accept. Just because someone is family does not mean they are aligned with your current level. That doesn't make them bad. It simply means they are on a different path. And when paths begin to separate, tension often appears before clarity does. So what you are feeling right now, this pressure, this awareness, this shift in perception, is not something to fear. It is something to understand, because once you recognize the battle, you stop taking things personally and you start moving strategically. You become less reactive and more grounded, less confused and more focused. And that is exactly where your power begins to stabilize. Now we need to address the part of this message that you may have been trying to avoid. The mention of a female presence within your family. Take a breath and stay grounded. This is not about blaming, accusing, or reacting emotionally. This is about discernment. Because when something like this is revealed, the first instinct is to either deny it or jump to conclusions too quickly. Both reactions can lead you away from truth. So instead, you must observe, carefully, quietly, honestly. There is a feminine energy around you that has been influencing your emotional and spiritual state more than you realized. This could be a mother figure, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, or someone who holds a nurturing or authoritative role in your life. And for a long time, you trusted that role completely. You allowed access, not just to your life, but to your inner world, your thoughts, your plans, your vulnerabilities, because that's what family does, right? But now something feels different. There is a subtle imbalance, and it didn't happen overnight. It developed slowly, through patterns you may have overlooked, moments where your growth was not fully celebrated, times when your decisions were quietly questioned, not out of guidance but out of discomfort. Situations where your confidence felt slightly shaken after interactions. Even if nothing obvious was said, these are not random occurrences. These are patterns, and patterns reveal truth over time. Now here is where your discernment becomes critical. Not every negative influence comes from intentional harm. Sometimes it comes from comparison. Sometimes from unspoken jealousy. Sometimes from a deep internal fear of losing connection as you evolve into someone different. When you begin to rise, when your mindset shifts, when your purpose becomes clearer, it can create distance between you and those who are not evolving at the same pace. And that distance can feel threatening, especially to someone who is used to a certain version of you. So instead of adapting, they may unconsciously try to pull you back into familiarity, back into old patterns, back into a version of you that feels comfortable for them. And because it's subtle, because it's wrapped in care, concern, or even advice, you don't immediately recognize it as resistance, but your spirit does. That's why you've been feeling conflicted. Part of you wants to maintain the bond, but another part of you feels the need to step back. That internal tension is not confusion, it is awakening. Now listen carefully. You are not being called to cut this person off in anger. You are being called to redefine access. There is a difference. You can still love someone and limit how much influence they have over your decisions, your energy, and your direction. You can still respect someone and choose not to share every detail of your life with them. You can still be present without being fully exposed. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. It is not about rejection. It is about alignment, and right now, your alignment is shifting. You are stepping into a higher level of awareness. A space where you no longer ignore how interactions affect your energy. A space where you no longer sacrifice your peace to maintain comfort. A space where you begin to trust your inner voice, even when it challenges long-standing relationships. Because what's ahead of you requires clarity. And clarity cannot exist where influence is unchecked. So observe, not with fear, but with wisdom, because the truth you are beginning to see is the same truth that will protect you moving forward. Now that your awareness is opening, the next step is not panic. It is discipline, because knowledge without action leaves you exposed. And this is where many chosen ones hesitate. Not because they don't understand, but because they don't want to change how they move. But right now, you cannot afford to move the same way you did before. There are 3 things you must begin to apply immediately. Not tomorrow, not later. Now. First, protect your energy. This means becoming very intentional about what you allow into your space. Pay attention to how you feel after interactions, not what was said, but what was transferred. Energy speaks louder than words ever will. If you feel drained, if your peace feels disturbed, if your clarity becomes foggy after certain conversations, that is your signal, and instead of brushing it aside, you respond with quiet adjustment. Less access, less exposure, less emotional openness in that direction. You don't need to announce it. You simply shift. Second, guard your plans. This is critical. You are entering a phase where what you are building, what you are stepping into, must be protected before it fully manifests. Not everyone needs to know your next move. Not everyone is meant to hear your ideas while they are still forming, because when something is still growing, it is sensitive, and the wrong energy, even if unintentional, can disrupt its development. So from this moment forward, move in silence. Let your actions speak later. Let your results reveal what you've been working on. But right now, keep it sacred. Third, strengthen your spiritual grounding. This is where your true protection comes from. Not from fear, not from suspicion, but from alignment. You must reconnect with your inner stillness. Whether that's through prayer, reflection, or simply creating moments where you disconnect from noise and listen within. Because the clearer your connection becomes, the stronger your discernment will be, and the less confusion you will feel. Now understand something important. You are not being asked to isolate yourself from everyone. You are being asked to become selective. There is a difference. Isolation weakens you. Selective alignment strengthens you. You begin to recognize who brings peace into your life, and who creates subtle disruption. And you adjust accordingly, without drama, without confrontation, without needing validation from anyone else, because your guidance is no longer external, it is internal, and this is where your power stabilizes. Now there is one more thing you must understand. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. You do not need to explain your distance. You do not need to justify your boundaries. You do not need to convince anyone of what you feel. Because the moment you start explaining too much, you give others the opportunity to influence your clarity. So instead, you observe, you adjust, you move differently, quietly, and with intention. Because what is unfolding right now is not meant to be handled emotionally. It is meant to be handled wisely. And the more you step into that wisdom, the more protected you become. Because what comes next will reveal just how much your awareness has grown. Now everything is coming together. This wasn't just a message to alert you. It was a moment designed to activate you. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay unaware. You were never meant to keep second-guessing what your spirit has been trying to show you. And you were definitely never meant to remain in environments that quietly weaken your growth. You were chosen to see, chosen to feel, chosen to recognize what others overlook. And now you are stepping into that role fully. This is your confirmation. The tension you've been feeling, the inner conflict you couldn't explain, the subtle distance that has been forming, none of it was random. It was alignment. It was your spirit preparing you to step into a higher level of awareness, a higher level of control over your energy, your decisions, and your direction. And yes, it required you to see something uncomfortable. Because growth does not come from comfort, it comes from truth. Now here is what you must hold on to moving forward. You are not losing anything. You are gaining clarity, and clarity will always feel like loss at first because it removes illusions. It breaks attachments that were built on incomplete understanding. But once that adjustment happens, you become stronger, more stable, more focused, because your decisions are no longer based on emotion alone. They are grounded in awareness. Now think about this. If you were not ready for this level of truth, you would not have received this message. If you were not strong enough to handle it, it would have passed you by. But it didn't. You are still here, still listening, still absorbing every word. And that tells you everything you need to know about who you are becoming. Now is the moment where you make a decision, not a loud one, not one that needs to be announced, but a quiet, powerful shift within yourself. A decision to trust what you feel. A decision to stop ignoring the signals. A decision to move with intention, not habit. Because from this point forward, you cannot go back to the old version of yourself. The one who overlooked signs. The one who gave unlimited access without discernment. The one who doubted their own inner voice. That version of you has already begun to fade, and what's replacing it is someone far more aware, far more grounded, far more aligned with purpose. Now, before you leave this moment, take a second and reflect. If this message spoke directly to you, if you felt that deep internal confirmation, then don't just move on like nothing happened. Acknowledge it, seal it. Type "I see clearly now" in the comments to declare your awareness, because speaking it, even in a small way, strengthens your alignment with it. And if you feel guided, support this message so it can reach others who are still unaware. Like, subscribe, and send a super thanks as a sign that you are stepping fully into your chosen path. Because this was never just information, this was activation. And now, you are ready